where you just like, I'm like, I don't feel like everything's worth this much. But they do an assessment thing.
Okay, call me to order. To adopt the agenda is presented. Councilor Warwick, you the twitch. All in favor? Carried. Business items. 2020. Imagine that. It's kind of like our budget meeting from last week.
So, Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything to add. I did put the reserve balances sheet in front of you today, and so it's there for info. But other than that, I haven't done anything with it. So I'll turn the floor over to you guys, and if you've got any questions, concerns, ideas, and we'll just go from there.
Well, I made a few notes and it's been kind of an interesting, that's fine. Special areas industrial tax transfer. So what is that exactly?
That's a nice benefit from special areas.
That's kind of what I thought. I just wanted to verify.
They, because they've got the industry in their jurisdiction, they like to share a portion of it. So they do share a portion with all of their urbans. And was 2022, I think, was the first year at 300,000. It had been 200 for previous to that, and then
No, I just
300. So it's a nice bonus that you know, a lot of urban or a lot of rurals probably wouldn't share with their urbans.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I know. I was pretty sure I knew what it was, but I just wanted to verify in my head.
Mr. Neal, would that also count then if that industrial park actually grows into fruition and actually, of course, increases the tax base? Would we get more?
Possibly. I couldn't answer that for sure, Councilor Murphy. I don't know if they do it like their recreation grant is a portion of their mill rate that they charge their residents on the residential property. I don't know if their industrial tax transfer follows a similar pattern, but there probably is a possibility that if they do get some development there or another industrial development, that they would share a portion with us.
Thank you.
Just go down a list.
Yeah, I just run the gauntlet, Kyle.
All right. So revenue, I like all the revenue. It's all good. So expenses, the first one I have under administration, the $10,000 for project management is just really vague.
Okay.
So if there's something in particular when it comes, I guess I would prefer we have that discussion at the time and take that off a budget as just a project manager. Like the engineering stuff I can get behind. We always have something like that. There's always money spent there. This project management, if there's something that comes up, I know you've talked about different grant writing or opportunities that comes up. I don't know if that's
Well,
you had in mind.
a little bit of that. I guess partly what I was looking at is we know that Rhonda's contract is up the end of this year. She would like to continue to do some work, so I put some money in the budget for project-based initiatives. For example, if we needed to review our personnel policies, that we would contract that particular project out, or if there was another particular project that's always been sitting on the side of someone's desk and not getting to, that we would have that ability to do some projects like that.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you right now what they would all be, but that's one that jumps jumps to the top of my head. So
Okay, so I would prefer if that was off of there, and then when the time comes, you have a list of specific things. And we can have that discussion, and it's pulled from circles at that point. The next one, on the same page, the fire chief contract. It really doesn't seem to fit when we see 3% all over for an increase, which I'm comfortable with. And then we see it's a 35% increase from 15,400 to 20,800. I would prefer a 10% increase. I think it's justified. Compared budgets, and it sounds bad. We do have a higher fire budget than other places, but we have a far superior fire department than many other places as well. So I'm happy with what we're spending overall. It's always a touchy thing, but I would change that to a 10% increase, which would make it 16,940 instead of the 20,800. So I'll just keep running through here, I guess, and then if there's discussion.
yeah,
as
at
we
the end,
go,
at the end of the day.
I'm with you on that, Kyle. I was one of the ones that I pointed out about kilo. What? So, yeah.
At the end of the day, Mr. Mayor, that's, I guess, once we've gone through them, I think then at the end of the day, I would like, before we make any decisions, that we have a motion on those items too. If the motion is to reduce from this to this, then we have a motion and it's voted on each one of those particular items.
Okay.
But I think it's good to discuss them up front.
So next page is just a question that, and I know we've discussed it several times, we've got all kinds of presentations on streetlights, 121,000. Was that to upgrade them because they're ours?
No,
Or
that's
is
the
this their
cost.
fee again?
That's the cost from ATCO.
Okay,
And it's lower, it's a lower cost than otherwise, believe it or not. It's a lower cost than otherwise because we still own the majority of the poles.
and that's when you had said at some point they'll
So
say
if-
no more.
If they go to, they'd love to have us switch and become invested, but then whether we pay now, and I don't know these numbers off the top of my head, but if we pay $25 per streetlight per pole, if we're invested, that goes to like $40 a month per pole. Because then they take over the liability of the poles themselves, so. they
You
charge
said that
them,
would
so-
be accumulation of about 70,000. That's kind of the notes. I
Yeah,
have.
it would be about that much of an
Yeah,
increase.
which
Yeah.
is huge. So,
So, yeah, that one was just a question. Next page, I have nothing. So the next one, just some clarification, the curling rink. $98,000, 380 for the expense. It shows a revenue on the revenue page of 44,200. So just so I have it right in my head, that's still a $54,000 deficit. Okay.
Sorry, the curling
For
club,
the
the curling rink
curling rink,
operation,
yes, sorry.
not the
curling rink.
curling club, the
Yes.
curling rink operation.
Yeah. Okay. Next page. Electronic sign. I feel like when the sign project happens, we talked about the gateway being where the chamber sign is and doing something there.
We didn't include, the gateway's not included in
Okay.
the sign
So
project.
the idea of that being more the entrance, I would rather do something else where I don't know exactly where. We'll get the signage project done, I suppose, but I would rather reduce 95,000 to 5,000 and put a static sign on there. Not digital, but just a sign with an enormous amount of flowers. Because that really seems to be a highlight in town. I like that, have that. I don't want to move it, take it down, but I don't think it needs to be that electronic display there. It's not the prime location as we shift towards.
We put a home vehicle back on that side.
Yeah.
And nothing, yeah.
So that one I had is a $90,000 reduction there. I had a note for. the
maybe
fuel.
that's, sorry, call, but maybe that's where a new mural goes, and then we can save another $2,500
Well,
for
Well,
Well, you
this.
sell the mural is the cost of painting the mural.
Yeah,
So you're gonna have that cost whether it's
No matter
on the
what.
wall or
Yeah.
there, so.
The airport fuel system shows $70,000 for that. It's also listed as a $2,500 expenditure. Is that an annual?
Yes, the
Okay.
$2,500 is annual.
Alright.
It's that IT stuff, Kyle.
I know, they're all a ripoff. So the next page, the last one, where I kind of go off the beaten path, the skate park, we have $25,000 for reserves. And I would like to add 50 to that to make it 75, to actually make a difference at that place. Whether that's, I don't know exactly what, I tried to find prices for, a
Wrap.
steel half pipe or something there, and I wasn't willing to phone and do all kinds of stuff to get quotes for it. But I think it'll need to be a significant investment, which is fair. Again, we haven't invested much into it for quite some time. It'd be nice to spruce that up. The other note that I had was I was happy to see a couple trucks. Every year we keep, they're an easy cut. Our trucks don't seem to get miled up, but eventually we'll have to bite the bullet. So I was happy to see that. Oh, that's all I had for items on there. So my total that I had, total reduction by adding the skate park, removing that 90,000, a total reduction of 53,860 against the 46,196 deficit is a $7,600 surplus as presented with all those changes. Couple other random questions. Community center. There was a note, the 350,000 set aside in 2021 of MSI dollars.
Yeah,
And that was assuming there would be a
removed that,
grant, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that still something we keep waiting and waiting and
It's a tough one because of the cost. It's if you do the plan as the plan is laid out, it's probably 1.8 to 2 million. Price keeps going up. So it's, the hope has always been to get a large grant from somebody other than us to kickstart it. Like a 50-60% of the cost of the project to make it worthwhile.
So
So
maybe call it like the Can West building or like that kind of
well,
sponsorship.
not even necessarily sponsorship. Like the last grant we applied to was the green and inclusive buildings. It was a
That's
federal
right,
one.
yeah.
It was 75%. So then, you can then make it happen. If you need to come up with 25%, you need to come up with $400,000 or $500,000. You can make that happen. But to come up with 1.8 would be a challenge.
is this generally a CSB led?
It's kind of lost momentum from the CSB. It was originally when it started, was a number of years ago. Caterers had issues. That was kind of where a lot of the initial concerns came from was the kitchen and doing the kitchen. And then as we moved forward and looked at it, there was mobility issues and questions with the washrooms. And so it just kind of morphed from there. Like I said, it's still a functional building.
I
Still
would-
functions okay. That's why it's probably been shuffled along on the premise that we can get a large grant somewhere to kickstart it, to really make it happen. But to just kind of pick and choose and redo the kitchen, it's probably, if you don't have any grant, it's probably going to set you back $400,000 or $500,000 to do that. So.
I'd really like to take a bite out of it, whether it's the bathrooms. Like the kitchen is still safe as far as I know. The bathrooms, I don't deem them functional anymore. They're
dated.
Yeah, they're
Dated
dated and the entry is terrible.
Yeah, the whole entry is dated. Yeah.
I'd like that to be more of a first option, is to do just the bathrooms first.
What is the value to rebuild that building today? It's more than two?
I
Well, I
would
was
think
gonna
so
say probably
significantly.
3.5.
I would even think more, maybe higher.
Is that right?
I'm struggling with the amount of money that would be utilized to demolish sections of it and rebuild it. If we're looking at 1 or 2 million,
Mm,
you still have a 50-year-old building, whether it's renovated with $1 or $2 million worth of improvements. That's why I was curious as to what the price to just,
Like the
Do over.
addition with improvements was 1.5.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was over 5.
I don't know, counselor, I haven't looked at that, but I would think to build something same kind of square footage, maybe a little bit bigger. I think it'd be 4 to 5 in today's world, but that's just a strict guess.
Substantial.
Yes.
substantial.
Well, those are my Coles notes.
And you better have some community support.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Yeah.
the big thing. I mean,
And that's a big challenge, I think, with our community right now. The community groups we have are struggling, and they're struggling, and the ones that are still operating, still functioning, are struggling to keep their head above water, let alone say that we're gonna contribute $500,000 to this project. You have to, I look at Centennial Place and the group that was there that did a lot of that fundraising and sponsorship, and the same thing's gonna be out in the community here. If the Ag Center gets going, it's gonna be the same type of thing. They'll be looking for millions of dollars to build, so. I just don't know if our community has the financial abilities to support that in that regard, so. But yeah, it's like, because the building's been functional and it's been used and works, we haven't tried picking up different parts about it, because the challenge with that building is always gonna be, when can you tie it up, and how long are you gonna tie it up, and how that's gonna impact people. So we have people who are booking a year or two in advance. And then you've got the events that are annual on these dates, that if you're gonna do something, you're gonna have it out of commission. So like a simple, I don't think just a simple knock it down and rebuild in the same space. So, but it might be an option. I'm still optimistic that there's some money out there. If we keep knocking on the door, that we're gonna find it, but
Forever an optimist, Kim.
but at the end of the day, if that's not gonna happen, then something will have to happen, so.
Does Hanna have an auditorium?
Well, the school has I would call it an auditorium, but
Fine Arts Auditorium.
it's
Fine
got theater,
auditorium.
it's
More
got
of a-
theater,
yeah.
but it's got theater
Theater
style
seating.
seating and.
Yes.
And,
We promote so much music, and yet we have flat seating when we have events. It was just a curiosity. if we
The
even have
school
an
was built for
auditorium
public use. That place was built.
for public
There was lots of sacrifices in the school
Mhm.
so that could be built for public use. So it is sitting there.
It is there, it's just, and I shouldn't speak for Stage Hanna because I'm not part of Stage Hanna, but I know the community center works well for them from the point that they've got all their lights in place.
And the dinners, because
Everything
it's
is, and
tables.
they've got the
It's a dinner,
kitchen, and it's
yeah.
easy for theirs is a dinner show thing, so it works really well for them in that perspective. But I know as an audience member, it's not the most comfortable place to sit and watch a performance for 2.5 hours. But the option would be, they could set up at the school probably, but then where do you have your dinner, and how do you orchestrate that? And so they've kept in because the stage is a very large stage in our community center, so it accommodates plays and performances like that. So as you can see then, in 2025, we have another kick at the cat with the community center in this budget, so.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
work? Anything?
Yeah, actually I do. Just when I was going through the expenditures, something that popped out to me time and time again was telephone. So I don't know if these are hard asks, like there's a telephone in each of these facilities. I mean, we have telephone for this one, administration, then we have fire telephone for that. We have common services, public works, telephone for that. We have sanitary sewers, telephone budget for that. FCSS, telephone for that. We also have one for business and communications, visitor information center, recreation, swimming pool and wading pools, arena. I guess every department has a telephone. So I guess I'm just curious to know, is this landline telephones? Are these cellular
So
telephones
what's in there is a combination.
of both?
The sewage lift station would be a cell phone.
Well, no, it's not, but it's the alarm. It's the alarm. It's a landline. It's an alarm.
Call
Call out if there's a problem with the lift station, it automatically calls out. So that's why there's one there. But a lot of it is it will be a mixture of either cell phones and when it's cell phones, it's generally cell phones for staff or it's a landline if it requires a landline. And the prime example of a phone for the mayor is there's a phone in Centennial Place in the elevator. It's required.
Oh, yes.
$140 a year.
It's required.
I keep track of that number, but
I don't think it's ever been used.
Also, under fire here, they have telephone, which is fairly substantial here. I'm just curious, like, is this for the fire hall? Is this for the firefighters? Is this cost that's incurred here? What is that? for?
Primarily, most of that is at the fire hall. And they have, because of their connection with 911 and all of their systems, they are multi-connected and have backup. So if they're on TELUS and TELUS goes down, and again, when we talk about that, a lot of it is internet. There is some internet charges on some of those facilities as well. But it will, if it goes down, then it has an automatic switch to Netigo as a backup so that they are not out of communication purposes. But they do have a fairly robust phone and communication system at the fire hall. I think the only cell in there, they do have a cell. Fire chief cell is there, or allowance is there, and there is cellular coverage again as a backup on the internet. If it goes down, I think they've got Rogers. So.
Okay, so I guess I'm just a little bit curious about like exactly maybe, I know on our we have, cell phone, expenses on there on it every 3 months, I think, quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly, yeah.
And so I guess I'm just curious when I see all that, what is really necessary? And maybe it's all necessary. Maybe it's just my curiosity just to see exactly, is this expense absolutely a necessary expense that we're spending? Because when I add all the dollars up, it's substantial.
Yeah,
For phone. And I'm not saying that we don't need phones in these facilities. We don't need access to phones. I guess maybe I'm questioning how much and what exactly that looks like in the overall scope of, because when I didn't add this all up again, but I had at one point added it up on a quarterly basis, and it is fairly substantial what we do spend on phone expenses.
Yeah, my comment would be that I think what's there is either necessary or required. Some of the facilities that are listed are public facilities that people still call, whether it's a swimming pool, whether it's the arena, whether it's Centennial Place. They call to see if they're open, they call to see what's going on. Some of it, even in the community center, is for emergency purposes. That's our reception center in the event of phones, so that we've got a landline there in case cells are down, and vice versa, trying to create some redundancy if one or other is down on the communication. So, and again, on the cell phone side, we provide an allowance to our staff, so they use their cell phones versus providing our staff with cell phones.
So we have cell phones and landlines.
Yeah, and they'll all be mixed into they'll all be under the telephone category.
I just don't think we want to be phoning the arena staff on their cell phones to find out if it's skating.
No. And they will phone the arena. A lot of people in today's world will just post on Facebook. Does anybody know what public skating is? But, some will still call that number, or believe it or not, there still are some children who don't have cell phones who phone their parents to say hockey's done, or you can come pick me up, or.
I'm not sure, because our system is antiquated now, but we used to be able to do a report of incoming and outgoing calls per number or facility. We don't have any redundant. We cut that bill back a number of years ago hugely. Spending hours negotiating with TELUS, but it's can certainly be revisited again. Or do you have suggestions of where you think they should be removed?
Well, I don't know, like when I look at sanitary sewers, of course, in 2023, our budget is down to 800. It was at 1,800. So there's $1,000 difference there for this one department. So I just kind of, when I was going through this, I was just trying to, equate all of this, how we get to these numbers, and what is, like you were explaining, what exactly that all is. Like landlines, alarm systems, all of those particulars that are, added into there. So
There's 3 different lift stations that have call-out systems that would fall within that particular budget line, I would think. I don't do the coding
Yeah,
on
so
that,
basically if something goes wrong with the lift station and the water levels are rising, then there's an automatic dial out to notify us that there is an issue, so.
and I'm not, some of these are absolutely a necessity. I'm just wondering if there's somewhere maybe they're not so necessary. And, that could be, and I mean, that's probably something that needs to be looked at through, lots of lenses to decipher all of that too. It's probably not just my scoping over top of what I'm seeing.
No,
here to
but
get
what
into
my
it.
comment would be that, if we had a phone that was in a facility that was not being used or serving any purpose, we would have eliminated it, so.
Yeah, and my other questions, I was going to ask how much was currently in reserve, and this showed up. And the only other question I was having when I was thinking through all of this is our deficit of 46,000. Could we pull that out of our reserve funds? Could we just automatically?
No, that's,
Just
well,
do
we wouldn't
debit.
automatically. Council could, and we did that last year. Council made a decision to, and I think it was 76,000. I made a decision to pull that. I'll pull that from surplus.
And I didn't mean automatically as in you were
Right,
just going
okay,
to it.
yeah.
I meant through process of
Yes,
motion
yeah,
and consideration with council.
If
Sorry,
council-
that wasn't the
If
right word.
council
but-
approved
Right,
a
okay.
budget drawing however much from surplus to balance, that's certainly a doable.
Okay.
Just don't think we want to be taking anything out of surplus. All possible. We've got some fairly large infrastructure stuff that has to get done, so.
You guys are quiet.
My brain
I
exploded.
think this
so.
year's budget, the deficit this year is not as much of a red flag as what I'm seeing for the next 2 years.
Next 2
coming up.
years are heavy,
It's-
have some heavy capital.
Yes,
Yeah, no
exactly,
doubt.
and which is,
But again, and not to say that the capital's there, doesn't have to be purchased, but we want to make sure that it's on our books and on our radar, so that we don't all of a sudden come one year and just say, we
You
need
didn't
this.
tell us.
Well, where did that come from? So each year you have to deal with it each year, but you are absolutely right, 100% that the next 2 years have some significant capital purchase in it. Most of the capital purchases are equipment. So we have kind of shied away from trying to use MSI on equipment. In the past we have, and we've been able to purchase that equipment, but it does leave us not having MSI available for water, sewer, roads. We've kind of wanted to try and focus our MSI more on core infrastructure, and try and sustain equipment, on our own. So, but the trouble with equipment too is it's going up like crazy too. So you always feel like you got 1 step ahead and 3 steps behind. So.
Sandra B, Councilor Bolden.
Yes, I do have a few comments. I support a lot of what Kyle was saying. And I was just going through, I just have a question, or can you hear me fine?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you're great.
So I'm just wondering regarding, expenses, again, and COLA is always an issue, and I'm sorry, but we have 15 staff that are indicating we'll be getting 3% and 1% for all staff. So how many of the 1% staff would that be, and why the discrepancy?
I'm just looking, Councilor Bowden, because I don't think that's the way it's written.
Those are just options. you presented, I
okay.
think.
Yeah,
you have
I have to
Yeah,
pull up.
I'm sorry, under the salaries expenditures,
Yeah.
as far as the grid step, including 3% local, 7 or COLA, 7 staff, 3% for 6 staff, adjustments only. Grid step, 3% increased hours for 2 staff. And then there is COLA adjustment, 1% for all staff, excluding CAO.
So the comment, just to clarify, Councilor Bowden, the comment where it says 1% for all staff, that's just a number that's there. So council knows approximately how much a 1% COLA means. So if you say 1% COLA adjustment only, it's a cost of $10,877. So it's just to give you some comparison what 1% is. And 2% obviously would be double that, 3% would be triple that. So there's no additional 1% for any staff, Councilor Bowden. There would be, as you said, just so everybody's clear, there would be 7 staff members receive a grid step plus 3% COLA. There would be 6 staff that would be at the top of the grid that would only receive the 3% COLA. And then there's 2 staff that would get a grid step and 3% COLA, and it says increased hours, but I think as we explained before, they were, one of the positions had not been filled because of long-term disability for 4 or 5 months. So we took that out of the budget. So we've added it back in so that the hours are there for a full year for that person. So there's basically if you're a full-time staff, you're either going to get a 3% COLA adjustment or you're going to get a 3% plus a grid step.
Okay. And what was it last year?
Last year was
2%?
2%.
I'd be more in line with the 2%. sorry, everybody, staff, but I think that would be more reasonable. Doesn't amount to a whole lot of money, but I'm also looking at, I do agree with the project management to take that out and use it on an as-need basis. I understood that Rhonda retired and we're extending her contract further. Is she one of the, well, I guess can't say that, but regarding COLA and that sort of thing, but I'm just wondering if, you know, I thought she was working on projects that were sitting around already, and would that be easier to reassign that to another staff member, or incorporate that maybe in hiring somebody else or contracting it out to somebody else? Or how long is this retirement going to continue on, was just a concern. And my apologies, I'm not trying to be ignorant or anything. It's just a concern that I have is I understood that when you retire, and then others are either brought in, hired at a lower fee, a lower salary, instead of an ongoing continuation.
So
So that is,
can I answer that question, Councilor Bowden?
yes, please.
So Rhonda is on, her contract expires at the end of this year. So
Right.
as of the end of December, the town has no further obligation to her, other than we have built in some owed vacation time that has been accrued, but we don't have any obligation or any commitment to continue with her employ. The thought was, she is a very knowledgeable individual and knowledgeable with our organization, that we might be able to contract her to do some projects that have been sitting on the side of people's desks, that will probably continue to sit on the side of people's desks, because we don't have any increase in staff to pick those responsibilities up.
But with that
Yes,
said,
and
you
I
could just
understood
write
that
it
she
right in
was
the time.
going to be doing that already as far as projects that were sitting around, and I do realize that she is a very valuable member, and I'm not under rating that at all. It's just, is there opportunity for a new, younger, cheaper staff member to hire for some of the jobs that have been allocated to others, as well as maybe some of the projects, just thought. So that's just a comment. So also, I do agree with the reduction with the fire chief to the 10% or less. What is justifying the 35% increase?
I guess I probably have a little bit more of an advantage, because I talked to the fire chief and I've had this discussion with him. You know, when his contract is up at the end of this year, and he basically has indicated that he spends a minimum of 2 days a week doing fire administration. You know, based on our calls, even if they're small calls, big calls, we're going to set a record this year for number of calls. So every call is more administration that you have to deal with, and more stuff going on with each and every one of those calls. So that was a request from the fire chief. You know, I can't say, you know, from my perspective, and I've said this to both the mayor and to Councillor Olson. I believe our fire chief does an outstanding job, and I believe as a result of his leadership, we have, as Councillor Olson said, an outstanding fire department. And is it a well-equipped fire department? You bet. Do they have what they need to do the job? You bet. David makes sure that his guys are going to be equipped well, they're going to be safe, they're going to have the appropriate equipment, they're going to have the appropriate training, and which is what we all want at the end of the day. So there is a and again, there is a cost to having good, and I'm not going to say a staff person, but to have a good person in that position. And that was his request of me to bring through to council, both, obviously we need to deal with it at budget time, but we also would need to have council enter into a contract under those terms.
What's been the standard for length of contract?
The standard for length of contract has been, we've had, I think, I'm not sure where David's contract was before I got here, but we've been 3-year contracts for at least 9 years.
My question.
And
Sorry.
And I do agree that he does a wonderful job. I do agree. But I was just wondering, would that be better managed as a bonus versus an increase for the next, well, I guess then I could say we're renegotiating a contract.
I'm not at Councilwoman, I'm not necessarily a fan of bonuses because, sometimes that can get you into some trouble because, everybody I think thinks that they do a good job and
Discretion is.
and just, you can sometimes hurt people's feelings in that matter. And the other thing that I did mention to Mayor Potaschuk and Councilor Olson last week too, and it's not to diminish the fact that there's a $5,400 increase in that budget. That budget is cost shared with special areas as well. So the net to the town is $2,700.
My clarification I would like is that this is not an increase in his hourly wage. He's doing more hours than initially anticipated. And this is to justify the expense of the hours he's doing. So that's not, I think it's the wording, Mr. Neal. It comes across like we are giving him a 35% raise. But what we're doing is he's doing 35% more work than before.
He will,
And we will compensate him fairly. I have no problem with that.
he will indicate, and again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but if you asked him, he would indicate that he spends a lot more time doing fire admin stuff than he did previously. And
So just for clarification for this then, so we have a contract with him, we pay him a certain allocation of funds for the contract, and then we pay him on an hourly basis of service calls, am I correct in that? Am I understanding this right then? Over and above?
he like any of our staff, our staff, but
Fire.
he gets paid per call, just like any of our firefighters.
Plus is whatever they're paying.
So then plus this.
Plus this is the administration component of the fire chief role. When he does respond to calls, he'll be paid the same rate as all firefighters
So, okay.
per call and per number of hours.
So
Yeah,
I guess,
That's better for me as far as understanding that is split with special areas. So I'm in favor of leaving it the way it is with that increase. Understand that. So then our cost is only, like you said, $2,700.
It's still,
versus the
yeah,
50.
it's still, and we're being transparent here. It's still a 30% increase from where he was at. But as I said, he will indicate that he spends a lot more time there than he previously did. So, and the other thing too, right, wrong, or otherwise, part of that time that he spends there is representing the town on the Alberta Fire Chiefs Association. And we've gotten some, he's, I think, been able to bring the message of volunteer fire departments through the chains, and he's well respected in that group. I know he just presented, he does a lot of presentations on behalf of AFCA. He just presented to the Minister of Municipal Affairs last week. He presented to both AM and RMA in terms of what they are trying to accomplish and what they're trying to do. And the one thing that's been a benefit, and I'm certainly not going to say it's a benefit, and the only reason it's there is because of our fire chief, but as you know, we were part of the East Central Alberta fire training partnership program. and there was grant funding for that program. They just reinstated $500 million back into that program. And I know David would have been one of the advocates on the Alberta Fire Chiefs Association that was successful in getting that through, which our local fire departments will see the benefit of down the road. So
This is also a salary.
Hang on, Councilor Rourke.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I just have one more question, just to get this all put out, laid out, so I can get understanding of this, and that may take some time.
that's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So when you say that special areas partners in paying for part of this, are they partnering in paying for part of this contract increase, or the honorarium or per diem that we pay him on his call outs?
Both.
Okay,
So to make it simple on our fire cost share arrangement with special areas, we basically take our revenue that we get on our fire calls and we we subtract the expenditures, and if there's a net deficit of $200,000 on the fire operation, they pay 50% of that.
thank you.
So almost the only cost that they don't share out of our fire listing is our 911 call, because they pay their own 911 calls to Red Deer. So they don't pay that, but everything else we buy, purchase, spend, etc., is split 50-50 with special areas, as is the revenue with special areas.
Okay, thank you. for that.
Councilor Murphy?
The income is basically a kid who works at Tim Hortons part-time. $20,000 a year is a very low income. So the idea that we're even discussing it is I find it a little bit funny, only because the expertise we get out of our fire chief is exceptional and the cost is low.
The challenge is, I think, Councilor Murphy, is that, and we'll be transparent and we'll acknowledge it, he is in that role in a part-time position. So,
As you can see by the income.
so that's
Yeah.
not a 40-hour a week
No.
salary that you might have at Tim Hortons that you're comparing to. So
He's actually available though, 80 hours a week. He's always available. Anybody wants to call him, and that's not something you can get if you call someone who's not in. So
yeah,
it's
no,
been good.
It's
been
been
good.
good. You guys know me. I speak very highly of David. I
Me
think
too.
he does a fantastic job. And
This is in no way a slight.
No, I know,
against Ron
I know.
there. This is a comfortable budget thing.
Yes.
Anything that goes up 35% deserves attention. If it's a
Yeah.
two-year contract, maybe
Right.
restage it 10% a year. I mean, that can happen with, I guess he'd have that conversation with you and we would come with that contract agreement. And I know Dave would not be offended and see that as a slight to him to say that this needs some attention. That's fair.
no doubt. And
Absolutely.
and again, I feel a little bit in a challenging spot because I'm speaking for Dave, but like I said, I'm speaking from my position and my role. And, he's the one that if you want to have a specific discussion on this component, would certainly be willing to be in the room and share with you what he shared with me in terms of the time that he puts through on the program versus what he put through in previous years. So.
And if I could continue, I know that there is so much more time that is spent depending on the situation and the magnitude, the tragedy of calls that they do go, that all the volunteers go out to, and that Dave does make sure, and Brent as well, do make sure that their staff are looked after and checked in on for mental health. And so, yeah, no, I do agree with the requested increase, and I don't have an issue with it now with that understanding. He is also the emergency management person as well.
Yeah, so we are, and that will
Separate
be
contracts.
separate. Well, we combined it into one contract with 3 different components. There's no change to the development or the emergency management in this budget or in the contract discussions.
Thank you. I think I have another Few other things, if you just give me a minute. If somebody else wants to ask a question, I think you can go ahead.
Councilor Crowell, anything? Good. Councilor Crowell?
The only big one I got is, it's the regional waste, is that fire, we're not going to be sure exactly what bill's going to be. And looking at that number.
We have a budget meeting next week.
Next week, yeah.
The challenge, Councilor Thorough, with that is, this is based on their 22 requisition. If their 23 requisition stays the same, which comes directly from the commission. If it stays the same, we're in good shape. If the commission needs to increase their requisition, what we've done in the past or how we've operated that is we've dealt with that through our regional waste site fee that's on our utility bill. So we would have to increase that. Nobody likes to see that increase, but we're really at the mercy of the commission in terms of what they require from us. If they say the town of Hanna has to pay them $500,000 a year, we need to pay them $500,000 a year. So I'm hoping that, I'm optimistic that, this fire isn't gonna cause any issues, but if it does, we'll have to deal with it. And I'm not sure how they'll deal with it. I know Special Areas is the largest member and the largest paying member of the Big Country Waste Commission. In the past, if, for example, they needed $700,000 to deal with this fire, they would in the past get a loan or a debenture from Special Areas, and the members would pay that $700,000 back over 3 or 5 years, however they want to set it up. Because to come to the municipalities with if that was the number, and I'm just guessing the number, if 700,000 was the number as a result of this fire, and they just said, oh, we're collecting it next year from all our members, you'd have a lot of members who would be pushing back. So they, Special Areas has been good in the past to front that cost, and then maybe you build it in over 3 or 5 years in terms of repaying it back. So, but until that number comes from them, we're going on what we've heard. So,
Well, that was one question. And then I was looking at your water line repair and maintenance for 35,000. It's just looking at everything else that's going around, the cost of supplies, whatever, I think
it's
just depends what we got.
we try and base it on a 3-year average. Some years are higher than others. And again, and I say this, the budget is a guide.
Yeah.
So if we have a bad year and we've spent $35,000 on water line repairs in September, and we have another one, we don't go, sorry, we don't have any money.
Why not?
It's the same with a lot of our, when you look through the budget, our R&Ms or our goods, they're kind of an average of 3 years, and go from there. But that doesn't mean, for things like that we're not gonna fix the water line.
Yeah, I know.
Or the sewer line. So
I was just looking at it, if there was about a 10% increase, because
it really truly depends. And I hate talking about water lines and water breaks because I don't want to jinx them. But some years you're in good shape, some years you're not. So we try and take an average. So
I also have another question, if I may.
sure.
I have a question regarding parks and the 284,000. Is that wages and maintenance, or was that due to the widening of the sidewalks?
So the 284,000, I'm thinking you're talking about salaries.
It's in the front summary, indicated.
So the
the
$284,000 in parks is basically the cost to operate our parks.
And that's all of it except Hector King Hunter, is that right?
No, Hector King Hunter is a separate, ball diamonds are separate, soccer's separate. That's just things like RCMP Park, Memorial Park, our boulevards, our, anything that we're doing outside, trimming trees, that type of thing. That's all, we all coded in parks categories.
Oh, the park department, okay, I'm sorry. I also had a question about the Lions Hall. There's discussion or plans on a community kitchen in there. Is there any word on that? And if so, that may generate more revenue, do you think, once that community kitchen is established in the Lions Hall?
I haven't heard anything for sure. I know that Mr. Nakota has been working on that project, and he does have some dollars set aside from Harvest Sky or through the coal transition to do the renovation. Certainly, as far as I would guess that it would bring us some more revenue. I don't know how much, but it certainly wouldn't hurt us. It certainly would bring us more revenue. I think the other thing too, in the Lions Hall, if we can replace that flooring in the Lions Hall, it's a better space, aesthetically pleasing. And if the kitchen, as far as I'm concerned right now, the kitchen is perfectly fine to do what we do 95% of the time. It's just in the eyes of public health, it's not a proper commercial kitchen if someone wanted to be catering in it or catering out of it. But so as far as I know, I'm optimistic that Mr. Nakota will be able to get that project moving forward in 23, and we'll go from there, and that would make the space much more rentable and usable in my mind.
Yes, I agree with you. Also, Public Works truck, which truck will this be replacing?
It's kind of a domino effect, and it'll depend on what council decides to do with bylaw enforcement. So if council decides to move forward doing bylaw enforcement on our own again, as we've talked about as an option, then probably the former bylaw truck that was turned into the fleet will come back to be used as a bylaw truck. So there won't necessarily be one dropping off of that end of the spectrum or of the fleet.
Okay, but you're still looking at
If we decide
another truck, right?
Yeah, and Parks is looking at a truck too, and probably in that situation, we would probably drop off our 98
Old blue.
So.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Is there an opportunity? Right, is there an opportunity for a good used one if they're available?
Right now with the truck market the way it is, Sandra, my personal, you can't find anything reasonable that's used for a reasonable dollar. There's trucks with 200,000 kilometers on them selling for $1,000 or $2,000 less than a brand new one. So.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what is actually out there when the time comes. If they're looking at a replacement and have that as a comparison to versus purchasing new. I know that not many residents are able to purchase new, and I think it's not very well received. If we are going for new vehicles, that should only be used within the town area and such. So that I have a bit of a concern with.
Well, that and we also get with the town buying, we get it at fleet price. So the rate we would pay for a new truck versus what your Joe off the street would be very significantly cheaper, like, probably in the neighborhood of 12 to 20%, I'm guessing, without actually knowing the numbers.
Probably, yeah, at least that.
Yeah, I realize that, but it'd be nice to see some figures first, is what I'm getting at. So other than that, I believe that's everything I have.
The challenge, Councillor Bowden, with used vehicles is comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges when you're moving forward and trying to recruit for them. And as the mayor said, the used market is a very hot market right now. And I think with our fleet discount you know, we're able to probably buy a truck that, you know, most people, as the mayor had said, would be $20,000 more. And, you know, at the end of the day, you're still, the thing with a new one is you've got your warranty, you've got everything there, you know, you've got a minimum of 5-6 years with no costs for that unit. And it is in our fleet, so it's not, you know, it's an asset to the town regardless. But it's certainly depending on what direction council wants to go. If that's a direction they would like us to explore, it certainly is an option.
But I think that is due diligence as far as in my opinion, would be seen by residents that we're doing our due diligence to do some price comparison, and versus just saying, you know, go ahead and do this without even seeing any figures. So I'd prefer seeing some figures before a decision is made.
Well, I think our due diligence is to choose the number to spend. If you choose to reduce it to $20,000, that's your ability. If we choose to leave it as $50,000, that's their ability to spend. We allot it, and
Well, and with our fleet discount, we're gonna get a better vehicle than a used one for that price. You don't get a fleet discount on a used vehicle. Okay, anyone else, anything else?
Just the bridge replacement. Just wondering if, you know, if there is any way you could look at we were talking before with culverts instead of just a regular bridge. Toll bridge, yeah.
It's certainly an option, Councilor Thoreau. Right now, I think what we do is play out the grant application, and if we're successful with the grant application and getting 75% of that, I'm not sure how it would fly again with Alberta Transportation changing the structure and changing the vision of it. But certainly if we're not successful this year, that's certainly something I think we would bring back on the table, and we could speak with our engineers and say, can you redesign this using a culvert system? What would that look like? Is that something Alberta Transportation would fund?
Yeah, because it's interesting that same body of water drains through 2 culverts across number 9. So I mean,
Yeah, it does. It does.
But it's something to look at,
Yeah.
you know. So,
Is there a date as to when that has to be addressed?
I don't know if there's a date, Councillor Bowden. It has been, we had it inspected in 2021 by the engineers to, you know, and they have a bridge rating condition. And I would say the bridge rating condition on it is probably between core and fair. And that's how Alberta Transportation will look at it too when they're funding, based on the number of bridges they get in, and they look at what condition it's in. We knew when we submitted it last year, we were probably too good to it was in too good a shape to qualify, but hopefully this it may have met their mark. So
Did you say that special areas may contribute something towards it or not?
no, I have not talked to them about it, and I wouldn't want to, you know, we assume responsibilities for our roads, and they're very good to us in a lot of different ways. So I have not had that discussion with them. That was something that was anticipated we would deal with as a town.
Okay, thank you.
Fred, you got a thumb scratcher going on?
Well, I think the bridge is something that should be dealt with, you know, on our own sort of thing between us and transportation.
Yeah, if we can
Yeah.
get that 70, like again, the bridge is another one. And I don't want to say it's the same as the community center, because if the bridge fails, we got a big issue. But it's one that, if you can get that grant
Yeah.
of 75%, it certainly makes the project feasible.
Feasible.
Without that, and, you know, us to come up with 1.9 just to replace a bridge, is a challenging issue, so.
One good thing about it is it's not one road in and one road out. We do have a
Shut
little
it down.
bit, we could.
You got 4 ways to get it.
Yeah.
We do,
No,
so
you're
we're
right.
not,
We
we're
wouldn't
not
be- it
totally
wouldn't
on
be an
a.
emergency
That's
situation.
right.
It'd be an
Um,
A lot
embarrassing
more
situation.
It'd be
traffic
more
on
embarrassing.
self-municipal road.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree with Councilor Olson. It would be an embarrassing situation, so.
Yeah, a lot more traffic on self-municipal.
John Deere wouldn't be too happy.
I know.
Boy,
No, not at all. Yeah,
me neither. Oh,
Anything else from anybody?
no,
Council Warwick's giggling.
I must say, Mr. Neal, your work is beautiful. I was a CAO for Veterans Affairs and your stuff is just beautiful. I just
Wow.
have to commend you.
Oh, don't do
Beautiful.
that.
We've
So
got
I can't help it.
We've got a
I
good
have
system,
to.
we've got a
Blushing
good,
up there
we've got a good
now.
system in
I can't
place.
see him.
We've got a good system in place, Councilor Murphy, and I just want, my role is I just want to make sure that council knows what's in here, tries to, you know, understand what's in here and is comfortable with what's in here, so.
So there's been a few little gray areas.
Yeah, well,
I'm just kidding. I agree. You've done a great job. I
Council Olson.
commended last time.
Question on that asset management program. Looks like there's a couple grants, the FCM and 10,000 from
from us.
2022. Is that
Yes.
the same depth as, I don't know what year it was, 14, 15, 16? There was,
So 2014, we had an infrastructure management study done. So this asset management project, we've got dollars set aside to redo that one. So it wouldn't start from scratch, obviously, but they would update it to include anything from 2014, any work from 2014 that's been done, and include in that and look at the priorities that were listed in there in terms of repairs. So, but there's only a small portion of that grant going to that. The other portion, the largest portion of it, we've allocated to building condition assessments. So they're looking at the arena, the curling rink, the swimming pool, this building, public works, fire hall, and they'll do a review of those buildings and give us a report in terms of when they expect the roof will need to be replaced, when this will need to be
Was
replaced.
that the inspections that were just going on
They
here?
were just here last week, to kick it off. The MP had 2 staff out here and went through all those facilities. But the infrastructure management study that you referred to, Kyle, in 2014, it will look very similar. It will just be updated with anything that's happened since 2014.
And that's coming soon? that
Well,
report?
yeah, and-
Okay, because they were just here.
yeah, that part, I'm hoping we'll receive it in 2023, probably before the end of summer.
Okay, good.
Anything else?
Can I just jump in here? I'd just like to thank Kim and all your staff for working on this. It's a huge project to get the budget together and everything, and you do a wonderful job as well as your staff and everything. And thank you.
No, thanks. Like I said, I enjoy this stuff, so. So
Two
it's good.
sleepless nights over 500,000.
Yeah.
Next year, just wait.
Yeah, no, that's when it gets more challenging for you as elected officials, so. So, and at the end of the day, council will approve what council approves. You also remember, we will be back to the table with any amendments to it in May prior to setting the tax rate. So at that point in time, I know we haven't talked about taxes here. Right now, there is no tax increase. And I'm sure council would like to see it that way, but you always, in May, if you have the opportunity, that will be when we talk about what the tax rate increase will be or decrease or remain the same. But at this point, the budget does not call for an increase in municipal taxes.
Assessment has to go up this time, doesn't it?
Well,
We're just.
but again, the budget is premised on the same amount of municipal tax brought in last year. So if assessment did go up, Councillor Olson, if we wanted to bring in the same amount we brought in last year, we'd lower the tax rate. Assessment could go up, and a lot of communities, if the assessment goes up, they leave the same tax rate and they do see an increase in the taxes that they generate. So, but I am optimistic that assessment will be up, not significantly, but it will be up. I think things are started to stabilize and go the right direction. So.
I'd also like to just jump in again. We've got new construction that will be done in 2023 that will be in our tax base with construction on the old lodge. I believe GFL has done some additional improvements in their property. The auto body shop has done improvements, additions to theirs. So there is some increase in taxable properties that we could be seeing as far as increasing the draw in for the town, and not to say that means we can go ahead and spend it or whatever, but I do like to see the 0% increase for commercial as well as residential.
That's not done until May, Senator, so.
But the budget right now is premised on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I realize that. I was making a comment that it's something to look forward to, that
Yeah.
we are looking at some increases in tax revenue.
Yep.
I realize we're not dealing with it for May, so.
Mr. Mayor, does this
Councilor Whitmore.
mean that will we have another meeting next week then, or will this come to council, the next council meeting for motions?
So that depends on you guys. So if there's no further recommendations, changes, ideas, my thought would be Councillor Olson has got probably some motions he'd like to make. In terms of some changes he is suggesting for the budget. And if we don't have any more and council's satisfied after that, then there's no need for a meeting next week.
Councilor Murphy.
The only concern I have is the 2% increase versus the 3% in the COLA. Other communities our size, slightly bigger, most of them are going 5. So the idea of dropping it down to 2 could be a little bit disheartening. The town of Strathmore is doing 5. A lot of really small communities are also. So, I mean,
Especially to do a 1.25 in case you're interested.
we don't work special areas.
So the
Like,
challenge,
what-
We work
But
with
what's the
special areas.
population, why would we be comparable to Strathmore? What's the population
No,
of Strathmore?
No, I said that as an example. I'm
But it's
sorry.
small communities, you said, like Strathmore. is
There's a big
quite-
I had a-
coronation, I think was.
Coronation has approved 3.5.
Yeah.
But they're
I'm
the
sorry, I
only
didn't
small.
have the list in front of me, everything I had burned, so I'm going by memory. And it just came out that I had Strathmore in my head. So I'm sorry, I don't know the names of the other towns.
No, I
It's
think.
somewhere in my ashes.
Again, right now, unless there's a motion to lower the COLA that's approved, the COLA that's in this budget is 3. If council felt that was too low, then that's a decision council has to bring forward. At this point, administratively, I think it's a fair increase. It'll be the largest COLA that the town has seen in 10 years since I've been here. I know we went through some, we haven't had the inflation that we've had, that COLA is supposed to help mitigate, but this is the largest. Like I said, when I was at the regional CAO meeting a month ago, most of the CAOs there were indicating they would be going to their council anywhere between 2.5 and 4.5. Whether they're successful or not, I don't know, but that was kind of their premise to move forward. And so administratively, we've chosen 3 and that's at council's discretion.
And I agree
That will
with
be
you.
moved by motion anyhow, and those amendments can be made. Is that not
Well,
correct?
So what
With
would
that,
you do?
no motion, if it
If
stays.
the
as
council
presented.
approves this budget has a 3% COLA in it.
Would you like a string of motions, Mr. Mayor?
Well,
I
we're
was-
gonna. have
Yeah,
motions,
so basically, so what has to happen now, as I understand, we need the motions to
Make changes
make
from
changes
this
to
document.
this document. So for example, the 10% on the fire contract and so on and so forth. Councilor Olson, kick it off.
Oh, yeah, I'll give you a few. I move to strike the $10,000 project management.
We'll use the word remove.
Remove, don't like strike.
Remove.
I like the word strike. That was the.
We're gonna move the 10,000, do you want a motion for each line?
Yes, please.
To remove the $10,000 project management.
So do you want to do this and make, go vote on each one now, or do you want to do them all? at
Well,
once?
we can.
No, you should
Each
vote
one,
on
each one.
each one because some people might like some and
Yeah.
not all of them, so.
So no, you got that one?
Did I second that? I don't know if you can second.
No,
This
no.
is special counsel.
All in favor?
So just
Oh, sorry.
wait, Councilor Crowe, so it's to remove $10,000 from the admin budget for project management. And Councilor Bowden, because we can't see you, you'll have to tell us your yay or.
I agree with that.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, you can call the question.
All in favor? Carried?
Yes,
Yeah.
Don't say carried until, well, I guess it was
It
carried.
was
based on
carried
the number
before,
here,
yeah.
I move to. I guess I'll clean this up. Reduce the electronic sign location budget.
I would just say to reduce the capital budget for the LED sign to
$5,000.
With and we won't put this in the motion, with the intention to
Put a stagnant sign.
stagnant cover over the electronic
Did you
piece.
say
that's there.
stagnant? Static.
Static.
Static. Better than
Static,
stagnant.
static, okay.
I did. say-
I'm sure if you were given, said you might have both.
It's the
We
smell.
both come up with it.
Yeah, reduce it from 95 to 5,000.
All in favor?
I agree.
Said she agrees.
Okay, carried.
Well, it's been a while since I've had one defeated, so let's try.
Which way are you going?
I move to. Well, it shouldn't be reduced, still increase the current fire chief contract. The 16,940.
From
From
20,800.
All in favor?
Okay, hold your hands up.
Sandra B?
I agree.
Was that?
You
yay
agree or
Yes,
disagree?
Agrees.
I agree.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, Sandra, a little bit staticky, so carried.
Please have it
So I guess
noted.
now that it's done the way, how does it limit for a 3-year contract? We still
Are
stage.
you requesting a,
I don't know. I just want to make sure it's noted that I disagree.
You had to
Is that okay?
ask, you had to ask before the,
Well,
Yeah, to ask for a
typically,
recorded vote prior
typically,
to.
yeah, typically if you wanted it, you would would have asked for a recorded vote prior to
Prior
the
to.
vote, but if people watches YouTube, they will know,
I showed up. That's the best part.
But does that limit when it's contract negotiations for Dave to present a like stage over 3 years of increase each year?
well, there was an increase in
all
each
three.
of the,
in-
each of the 3 years for his contract, so 20,800 was not the final.
Okay, that wasn't 1 year, okay. Okay.
there
That was the
number every
increase, that
year.
was the increase in year one.
Right.
So the only thing I will say on that is I will present that to the fire chief. He can either accept it or decline it. And would resign, or we'd be looking for a new fire chief. So that'll be his option
I might.
moving forward. So that'll be his decision. So I can't speak for him. So
I can tell him to, stick it until May if we need to amend it for him.
yeah, I'm sure
I'm sure you
what
would
will,
have discussion.
I'm sure what will happen, Councillor Olson, and again, I can't speak for David, but I'm going to. I'm sure he's going to be disappointed in that decision. And what I would do, certainly it's been approved. That's what will go in the budget. But perhaps at our next council meeting, Mr. Mole can present. I'm sure he'd like the opportunity to present to you, and whether that changes council's opinion or not is to be determined. So
I think he should be able to counter. Don't you think, or not?
Yeah.
well,
always fair.
that's always an option.
Yeah, I would like to hear him present or come back if he's not in agreement, because I can go either way.
But it's so hard to find comparables. That's what I was looking at. Trying to find, you can find $26 an hour to $65 an hour. And I will never deny his value, his worth, but
Just a minute.
35% increase is pretty extreme.
But yeah, so like I said, I can't speak for Mr. Mole, but I'm sure that he will want to speak to you about his
I'm
request,
sure he will.
since it didn't go according to his wishes moving forward, and ultimately, that discussion will lead to further debate, and council can amend if they so choose to, or not. So
You're 3 for 3, buddy.
I'm surprised. My last line, the skate park that we haven't invested in for many years, and removed stuff from. I would move that we increase or add an additional $50,000 to the capital cost for that.
How much?
50 to go from 25 to 75.
Can I interject here?
yeah,
Where are you getting your values from? Like, I'd like to see some sort of cost analysis or whatever. Could that money be put into reserves to draw from, but not necessarily approve X number of dollars until we have some idea of what things would cost and what is needed?
so my interpretation would be, if this motion passed, is that number in the budget would increase to $75,000. What we would be tasked with administratively is bringing the plan back to council to show them what that $75,000 would bring them.
What kind of bag you get?
What you can do, what we could do with that 75. If at the end of the day, council chooses not to spend the full 75, that's within their prerogative. It's not, the 75 is, as Councilor Olson said, it's just the number at this point in time that gives direction to administration to work towards in developing a plan. So there's a big difference in developing a plan for the skate park from 25 to 75, and there probably could be some options between 25 and 75, but 75 is the max limit at this point in time.
Well, I'm wondering if you'll accept a friendly amendment, because I too feel like that is a huge jump.
I will accept it.
You know what, I would agree that maybe we do need to do an upgrade at some level. I think it's pretty substantial. Without a footprint in front of me to say I'm going to spend another $50,000 on a skate park, especially when I'm cutting in other areas. I would say, you know what, as a progressive movement over maybe the next 3 years, and I don't know, I mean, you can't do one piece of pavement this year and another if you were looking at that, but if there is areas where you to do a progressive movement, why couldn't we split that difference over the next 3 years, the 50,000? So that would equate to, if I can make a friendly amendment, I would say if we go out to, 40,000 this year, we increase this in the budget to 40,000 and work on the rest of that over the next couple of years.
I guess there's a couple of ways of looking at it. So if you put the 75 in, you've got the dollars there. And as I said to you, that doesn't mean we have to spend 75. The onus would be we would need to bring back a plan to council, and council could decide. And that plan could have phasing in it at that point in time. And if that's the case, you've got the money set aside. If council did approve 75 and the plan, the first phase was 40,000, it would mean you've got $30,000 in reserve to do phase two. That phase two is in a future year. I like Councilor
75 is impact money.
I like Councilor Olson's number just for the fact that we know we've got challenges in our 24 and 25 budgets. So if you can deal with it in the 23 budget, then you're not necessarily coming back in 24 saying, okay, we didn't fully fund it all in 23. We only funded phase one, so we need another 25,000 in next year when we know next year's a tight budget to begin with. So that would be my comment on it.
And $75,000 is impact, but you can do something with 75. I'm not sure you can do much with 25 or 30 or 40 for that matter.
So, excuse me, can I just ask another question then? What exactly needs to be done? Is it the railing? Is it the hard surface? Like, what are we looking at here? Like, are we?
The hard surface has to be redone. That like the base underneath.
That's the first step.
That's the
Yeah.
first step.
And is that, what is that, pavement then or cement?
Asphalt.
Asphalt, okay.
Well, ideally, as you pointed
Would
out,
be that
Jim,
rubbery
that,
stuff, right? Wouldn't it be better?
Sorry.
Not for skate park.
yeah, right now it's currently asphalt. As Kim pointed out too, it missed the boat unfortunately with paving crews around to.
Because we did
Something on there.
have $25,000 in the budget last year, and that we probably missed the boat that if we probably could have got
Overlay.
an overlay over that for that amount of money. So
So are you saying that this year it's gonna cost 50,000?
no, but this year, if we can do that, then we can look at adding or replacing some of the props or apparatus or whatever we would call that the kids use. Because it's one of those things, they've been there a long time. They've done their fair share of life, and right, wrong, or otherwise, kids get bored with the same piece of equipment. And so it'd be nice to add a piece of equipment or two within our budget that changes the variety of the park. So, but there needs to be some work done on that, and we need to try and get. I know there was some interest in the school through one of the professional or project-based learning groups, but that kind of went by the
When I did my municipal politics, there was a young fella in one of the classes that had brought up quite a bit of interest in the skateboard park, what needed to be done, what could be done. And as I said to him, I have no clue. I haven't been on a skateboard in years, so my opinion of what needs to be done is null and void. I said, but you have to come forward and tell us what we need. So I'm pretty sure we could go to the school and get some kids that are involved and tell us what we need. Like, I mean,
yeah.
this, nothing personal with this group here, Jack.
No, I agree wholeheartedly.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, Kyle probably did.
I agree. If before we move forward with any plan, we've got to get that input from the kids.
Because I mean, we can do whatever we want, but ultimately, if it's not something that we use, then it's.
It's a waste of money.
Yeah, and as far as the overlay, I want us to try and stay on top of it so we don't end up in a tennis court situation where we have to do a full blown restoration of the project. So
I was just thinking that rubber stuff that they put on the water park is incredible. Could they not use something
No,
like
it's gonna
that?
be hard.
It's gotta be,
Gotta be
gotta be
hard.
hard.
That I do know.
That is just so cool. I love that water park. It's amazing.
Okay,
So-
Then are you looking at then leaving it at 25 and then adding the 50,000 into reserve?
No.
50,000 to that.
no, we're gonna add,
Project that
we're gonna make it
You're gonna have
75,000.
75 in there total.
Pending info.
Yeah, and we would bring back a plan to council on how that 75 would be spent.
And if it doesn't, if there's no interest or it doesn't need to, then that money won't be accessed.
Correct. I do believe there'll be interest. It's just a matter of getting the kids focused and getting them together on this project. It's a different one because it's a one-off. It's not something that's part of minor hockey or minor ball or minor soccer where they got, that
Yeah.
group, but they're individual users, so it's hard to sometimes bring them together. But I think there would be interest there, and I think we would get some valuable input if we could focus, a group of kids on that project.
Yeah, I just have an issue of setting aside a certain amount of money without knowing what it's going to be used for and all that sort of thing. And whether or not it would be for 2023 or 2024 or whatever, I guess.
My motions.
I was gonna say, we have a motion on the floor to put $75,000 towards the skateboard park. All in favor?
I disagree.
Opposed?
Okay.
Okay,
And so do I,
okay, carried.
but it's still carried.
You're safe either way.
Democracy.
That's it.
If anybody else has any more changes that they'd like to make, now is the time.
We're out of
So
money.
what was the decision regarding COLA?
But the budget
The budget
has
says
3%
right
right
now.
now unless there's a motion to
Change
amend that.
Yeah, but was there anybody interested in 2? And regardless of smaller communities going to a different level, we don't know what their circumstance is or what their expenses are and things of that nature. So
If you'd like to
I
make,
think
if you'd like to make,
our residents might have an issue with that, and that's who I'm voted in for. So I would like to make a motion for a 2%.
okay,
Any discussion, comments?
I'd support the 3, but that's, you got it, Naomi?
All the questions.
Motion,
The motion would be to
cut it back.
have a 2%
Call it.
COLA.
Increase.
All in favor of the motion? Opposed?
Myself,
Oh, two in favor, 3. Motion is defeated.
So we're not increasing it?
It's at 3%.
It's at
Oh, so
3%.
now we're gonna. Oh, so
We're
we
not
need a
reducing
motion.
it. You're voting to reduce it.
Okay, so we don't need a motion.
That being said, I think we're good.
So the plan would be if council is comfortable following these adjustments, I can't remember, what did you say, 7,600 surplus?
I've got
70.
7,664 surplus.
64, okay. So we'll make those amendments to the budget that were passed this evening. And the plan would be at our December 13th budget meeting to bring that document to council for decision. Unless there's any other changes, and if that's the case, if everybody's comfortable, then there's no need to meet next Wednesday. And we will simply bring forward the budget with these changes to the 13th meeting.
Everybody's happy?
Mhm.
Final chance.
Yeah. Good.
Most for adjournment.
job, everybody. That was awesome.
Thank you
I
all.
guess not
Have a great
budget,
evening.
just-
You too, Sandra, take care.
Thanks, Sandra.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Drive careful.
Bye. Yeah, thank you.